The Rice Creek Board of Managers regular meeting. Today is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. It's 9 a.m. We're in the Shoreview City Hall Council chambers. Record reflected, all managers are present with appropriate staff and legal support and engineering support. Mr. Administrator.
Yes. Good morning, Manager Bradley, Board of Managers. Staff have no proposed changes to the agenda. I'll make note of the materials handed out to augment or change what's in the packet regarding WACA application 2440 under your consent agenda.
All right. With that, can I have a motion to set the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. That gets us to approval of
the minutes. Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of the October 7 workshop and October 9 2024 regular meeting.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Should have, of course, asked for a discussion if there was any, but I suspect if there was, I'd hear it by now. Okay, so the next thing is the consent agenda. Patrick, 24-072.
Yes, Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, staff have one application for your consideration today. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions of Patrick? Hearing none, can I have a motion on 072?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of permit number 24-072.
I expect you want to ask for a Caprock.
Yes. Oh, are we doing, this is the consent agenda.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. To approve the consent agenda as outlined in the table of contents in accordance with the engineer's finding and recommended dated October 15th, 2024, applicant number, permit number 24-072 with Caprock.
I will second that. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that takes us to the amendment to the next item, the WACA application requiring board action. Patrick, will you please explain?
Yes, President Bradley, Board of Managers. So in your packet on page 32 is a memo explaining the situation when the packet was developed. So the sequencing application was originally on the October 9th agenda. It was removed at the request of the applicant to continue conversation. They extended the 1599 decision timeframe until today, October 23rd. The packet materials identify that staff's recommendation of the sequencing application would be denial. Since that time, we have received updated materials from the applicant and reviewed them internally and with the TEP. Staff's recommendation is now to approve the sequencing application with conditions. And so that's the materials that I've handed out this morning. It's an updated notice of decision document that shows approval and also includes the email submittal from Kellogg Environmental, who serves the applicants, as well as the updated site plan showing the 0.391 acres of wetland impact. So
could you briefly explain what changes they made to accomplish this?
Yeah, my understanding of it is that the applicants went back to their anticipated tenants, talked with them about their needs as far as building size and layout and such, and also met with the city of Blaine to talk about setback requirements, site access, things like that. So the updated plan does show 2 site accesses. This allowed some of the parking to be realigned and everything to be shifted more northwest, which has reduced the wetland impact further.
Further questions of Patrick?
I mean, I don't have a comment, and I shared this with Patrick before the meeting started. This actually really frustrated me. When we got the first item on the packet from the last meeting, I got a call actually from the applicant or a member of their group saying, why is the city of Blaine trying to deny my project? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know anything about this project. And if there's someone at City Hall that knows things about projects, 9 times out of 10, it's probably me. So I went to the Watershed packet and I was like, oh, lo and behold, there's an item in here. And I will be straight up honest with you. I am the least versed as it relates to watershed regulatory measures, yeses and nos. This has certainly been a learning process. Every time I sit in here, there's a new acronym that I learned that I didn't know existed. So full disclosure, but I read it and I got upset because what I was interpreting, what we normally see is, you know, very specific wetland related things. But what I read in here was more land use authority language versus watershed language that we typically see. And that frustrated me. It frustrated me then to go through the process so much so that I actually called Mr. Waller because I was like, listen, I probably don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to tell you what I interpret this to be. You tell me if this is accurate, if I'm right or wrong, because I didn't know. I'd never seen something come through here like that. I understand there was dialogue at the workshop. I understand this was pushed the last time and now it's before us again. Just a lot of frustrations with how it seemed this process went. There was a lot of things in there that I just don't know why the watershed would have an opinion on where a retail site should be located on the property or how many garage stalls they can have. That's a City of Blaine or land use authority scenario. Well, it doesn't even have to go to the planning commission. They just need a building permit because it's allowed. So it's frustrating for me. And I mean, what I wondered in the back of my mind, and I hope it's not the case, is how many of these happen that we don't know about? And the only reason I really thought to pay extra attention to the packet is because I got a call from someone that was, you know, related to the project, and that frustrated me. So I would hope that as it relates to all of our respective counties and cities, as we're looking for opportunities for economic development, responsible economic development, but this isn't happening and we aren't knowing about it because this really, really frustrated me a lot.
I just have one comment. I do agree with everything that Ms. Robertson just said. I think that this should come back to a workshop where we take a look at, I think if I remember right, at the last meeting, somebody did ask and I think we were told that we see about 10 to 12 of these a year. If I remember correctly, that's a lot. And I think we definitely need to look at the process or look upstream at what's causing these to trigger or what we can do to change that. And I agree. I thought the language was way off base for a watershed to be even involved in. That's just my personal opinion, but I agree 100%. I think we should come to a workshop to be looked at closely.
So let me just comment. I also was very upset, as you picked up from last meeting. My primary dispute was when they said, well, couldn't you do it on a different piece of property?
Yeah, that
You mean, couldn't they do it 8 miles away?
You do it in a different city. I mean, under that standard, if that were actually the standard and was allowed to stand, that would mean you'd never give wetland credits because you could always say, go build it somewhere else on dry land. So, but anyway, we don't want to take this one back to anywhere because we want this one to proceed. But, you know, to the extent we want to ask staff to come back to us and say, well, how often, and I've been doing this on 10 years. In 10 years, I've never seen a decline recommendation. This is the first decline I've ever seen. Maybe there've been others. I don't recall any. So I don't think we've ever done this before, and we hope we won't do it again. That's where I stand.
Manager.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chair, managers, just on that subject, I will note that at a staff level, it is a problematic aspect of the analysis. But where it originates is in the rules adopted by the Board of Water and Soil Resources that are that lay out the framework that every unit of government has to go through when they're implementing the Wetland Conservation Act. And under the explicit rules for the avoidance analysis, which is a mandatory part of the analysis, they enumerate very carefully what the district staff are required to look at for the avoidance analysis. And I won't obviously read them in their entirety, but one requirement is one question, whether the basic project purpose can reasonably be accomplished using one or more other sites in the same general area. A second one is whether reasonable modification of the size, scope, configuration, or density of the project would avoid impacts to wetlands. And there are several others of that nature.
So my grievance was that they answered each of those questions with a negative. And then we proceeded to say, we don't believe you. We don't agree with you. I don't know what the basis was. That's where I think we went off the rails.
And again, we recognize that it's a challenge. The district doesn't have.
We have to ask the questions. That's one
staff.
thing, but it's another thing when you get an answer that says, no, I can't do that.
And they provided like pages of additional site locations and pros and cons and why it works and why it doesn't, but the question still kept getting asked, and that just
So anyway,
mind-boggling.
I'm pleased that in fact level heads off the record sat down, met, realigned the building to the northwest, added an access, changed the distance requirements from the road, fairly Herculean efforts. We've reached a solution that's acceptable to the parties. I think we should just move on at this point.
Mr. President, pardon me. As you remember from our workshop a couple of weeks back, all three of us that were in attendance there had similar feelings, and I agree with everything that I've heard from my colleagues today. I realize that the subjective judgment of the administrative staff at the Board of Soil and Water Resources writing rules for the legislation was passed by the legislature often can be confusing. But it does say here in this packet here that I have to make a decision, and I have to make sure that it's feasible and prudent. And if I find it feasible and prudent, it's okay. If I don't find it feasible and prudent, as a local unit of government in this particular instance, because of default, the city isn't taken over the Wetland Conservation Act yet. I hope they do. I encourage them to take over the rules. And the words feasible, capable of being done. Well, if you're going to make it in Hugo or Lino Lakes or Columbus or White Bear Township or any of those places, that's not feasible for that customer. Prudent means, is it practical and wise? Starting to redesign the building so that you have to put the retail on the second floor when maybe the building design is a warehouse. It doesn't have that kind of construction at the bottom. I think that's way overboard. I'm not against having an inventory of the natural resources provided to the local unit of government that's in land planning, the city. That I think is a reasonable thing to do. But I heard your questions that you provided that are asked, and I appreciate that, Mr. Holtman, but you said reasonable was one of the words you used there. And I don't find that this was a reasonable until maybe today now, maybe. Now, I personally went out and visited the site. So I got to look at the oak trees. So I'm really questioning the delineation out there because I didn't take my shovel with him. I wish I had, so I could see what the soils were underneath, you know, as to what it is and isn't. So again, those are subjective judgments, you know, on what a wetland is. But I agree with my colleagues that want to take a look at this process and how we can improve it in the workshop. Thank you.
Can I just ask one final question? I'm assuming, are you the applicant on this matter? What's being proposed in here? Because we just got this morning, as opposed to this packet, which is very reflective of the one we had the meeting before. Is this acceptable? Do you feel this accomplishes your goals? It meets the needs of your project? I want you to have long-term success in the city of Blaine or anywhere that you choose to grow. But is this, I mean, because with, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Would you be open to stepping up to this beautiful podium, please? Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, I just want to make sure that this meets the needs of what your team expectations are, what the requirements that you need to make your project, you know, long-term growth, all the happy things. Does this accomplish that?
Yeah, it's maybe not as ideal as what we originally had hoped for. However, that said, we went back with the tenants in the city and worked hard and tried to reconfigure and pull some additional building area out of the wetlands. And we were able to do that and work with our tenants, work with the city, work with staff, and accomplish that goal. So I appreciate the concern greatly. And thank you for the question, but we are comfortable at this point.
Okay, perfect. If you're comfortable, then I'm comfortable. The last thing I want to do sitting up here, not being involved in the project, is make assumptions that this is a green light for y'all. So if you're good, I can be good.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate
of
the
course.
question.
Thank you, Luke.
Any other questions?
No,
Would you
thank
identify
you.
yourself?
Thank you.
Oh, for the record, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Luke Appert. I'm one of the owners of the site and part of the application team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're ready for a motion.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Is there a revised motion with the new amended? Because I'm assuming the one in the packet is no longer
Yes, we're not here to deny.
right. So what would we like that motion to read, since the language in here is different?
Manager Robertson, correct. I'm sorry, I did not provide an updated motion. I think with a couple simple changes, it could be sufficient, changing deny to approve. And then I think on the second to last line, the basis that the sequencing application does meet the impact avoidance requirements of sequencing, I think those two changes would probably be sufficient.
Okay.
The date, Patrick, of that's today's date?
That's today's date.
On the yellow page.
Somebody know what page it's?
There we go.
There you go.
Oh,
Good, good. Okay.
23rd, so we don't need to change that, okay?
So let's correct me if I don't get this accurate, if we need to amend to make sure that it reflects what we're doing here this morning. I would move to approve the WACA sequencing application number 24-040 is outlined above. Well, no, not as outlined above. Or is it? Because again, outlined above says denial. So
No, it's the name.
all right, so move to approve the WACA sequencing application 24-040 in accordance with RCWD regulatory manager findings and recommendations, and on the basis that the sequencing application does meet the impact avoidance requirement of sequencing.
I would second that.
All in favor, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for your assistance in cooperating.
Thank you, Luke.
Okay, Mr. Administrator.
Yes, President Bradley, Board of Managers, you're up to open mic.
Oh, thank you. We have our usual two visitors. Are they intending to speak today in open mic?
Hi, I'm Christopher Still, 426 Pine Street. Good morning, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I have a few important concerns that I hope you'll seriously consider as they affect the integrity of the district and the water management system in our area. First, let's talk about what's happening upstream of my property. You illegally lowered the pipes that cross Pine Street, which improved the flooding conditions for the city of Columbus and its residents. However, in doing so, you've increased the flooding conditions of the city of Lino Lakes and its residents. You also made a very unsafe and unnatural condition by increasing the water flow in the opposite direction of that of the grade or the elevation of the road. Next, let's talk about what's happening downstream. There seems to be a dereliction of duties when it comes to the culverts at Andel Street, 4th Avenue, and the Robinson Sod Farms. If you're serious about managing the flow and preventing long-term problems, you need to go further downstream and take a closer look at this specific topic. The issue was not proactively managed. Hiring a pumper truck at flood stage is way too late. Proactive management of the effectiveness of the drainage systems and its components play a crucial role in the overall flow of the system, and any obstructions to the drainage system and its any design flaws will ripple downstream and impact the entire network. There are problems with multiple culverts downstream of my property. The Andel culvert, which has been an ongoing issue for years, hasn't received proper attention. The pipe system that you have increased will also need to be increased downstream at 4th Avenue and I believe 125th and any others that I may have missed. Your engineering report mentioned that Andal Pipe was constructed property, but that report was done before the Pine Street culvert was lowered upstream. That change significantly altered the system, so the report is outdated. It's time to revisit it with a fresh set of eyes and take current reality into account. I have to ask, how long has the Andal Pipe been needing attention? I've been voicing concerns for years, yet the ongoing management of this system has been poorly handled, if it's been managed at all. Your website says you manage all of the needs of the drainage system and maintenance, yet you have pushed the Andal culvert maintenance to the city of Lino Lakes. How do you expect trust from the public when you gave the public the runaround for years? The culvert isn't a new issue. It's a persistent one that is now far worse due to the lowering of the culverts upstream, and it's deeply frustrating. It seems like it's been falling on deaf ears. Speaking of which, lowering the Pine Street culvert has created a significant deviation from the original 1890 survey. We're talking about a major shift of what was historically established. Also, to clarify for everyone here, the lowering of the pipes you are talking about today is West Pine Street, not Pine Street. Please stop using incorrect street name identifiers in your reports and minutes. It's a basic thing, but it matters when we're discussing technical issues that have long-term implications. Furthermore, the lowering of the West Pine Street culvert will also negatively impact me, as the system downstream already cannot handle its waters. Now I want to address something else. I found out that Rice Creek Watershed District was having a meeting where the topic of 102232 was to be discussed, yet the minutes reflect that the issue was on the agenda because I brought it up. That's not true. I attended that meeting because it was already on a topic list. Why do the minutes seem to imply otherwise? It gives a false impression of my role in this matter, and it's important to set the record straight. The issue was already on your radar and has been for decades. It's not just coming from me. Furthermore, I thought that what was discussed was having engineers look at the entire system, yet from your published information, it seems that system-wide issues are being ignored, and an outside engineering firm has been hired to investigate only my specific concerns. Apparently, I only brought up 4 issues according to the engineering report. In fact, I brought up more than 4 issues, and the other ones were ignored. Issues such as the power poles along Pine Street being undermined. That's not your guys' jurisdiction, but you guys approved the ditch lowering. All my concerns are not being addressed. Some of my concerns are being ignored. The engineering report also includes imaginative framing such as historic berm piles to refer to poorly handled soil and sediment. From the last meeting, it is clear that the Andal pipe needs significant attention and has for years, and improvements to the system require cost recovery according to your hired personnel, your administrator here. I don't ask for the improvement upstream of me that has made my flooding problems significantly worse, and therefore now I need an improvement downstream. Where's the logic in this? Also, who paid for this improvement upstream? As the cost recovery for management of the downstream effects are not the burden of me, or should not be the burden of me and my neighbors. In other words, you guys lowered that pipe upstream. You guys didn't do cost recovery for any of the neighbors that it affects. And now you're saying that if to lower the pipe downstream of me that's been plugged and collapsing and full of sediment and the intake screwed up, you didn't fix it. But you did in the process lower the pipe upstream of me, even though I brought up that I was flooding before you lowered that pipe. I also received no notice about this improvement as required by law. Lastly, you haven't been following the laws of the DNR or the Wetlands Act. The way you've managed the water flow in the system of 102232, specifically branch 4 after it crosses 4th Avenue, has completely deviated from the original flowage. Please look at your map of the area I am talking about and explain why the system looks like this. Anyone with common sense knows that a natural creek doesn't make multiple 90-degree turns on property and fence lines. Instead, the system should be of a crow-flying design. And by mismanaging this, you've caused a significant loss in elevation. According to your own staff, there is only 1 foot of elevation, or you can call it pitch, or you can call it grade, per mile. Yet the thing goes, you're going from here to here, cut it through, you'd have more flow. You've lost significant elevation. I know because I'm a licensed plumber in the state of Minnesota with a background in engineering, and I have a degree in computer animated design. In conclusion, we need immediate action to restore the integrity of the water management system. That means going downstream to address the pipe at the sod farms, revisiting the Andal pipe with updated engineering analysis, and enforcing the laws that should have been guiding this process all along. Basically, when I showed up at that meeting, you guys were talking about looking at 10/22/32. Everybody's decided it's a disaster. I came and agreed that it's a disaster. And then you guys had an outside engineering firm that basically said, there's no problem with it. Then my four comments were, the pipe downstream of me is screwed up, collapsed, messed up. Oh, that's true, but we'll put it down here, not in the original report. Then they said, oh, we don't need to lower that because it wouldn't help you. Well, no, because you got to lower that one and the ones downstream further. You probably got to go about 2 miles, but you lower the one upstream. Now my concerns is today you're talking about 10/22/32 on West Pine Street. It's just like letting more cars on the freeway all at once. So when that backs up, it backs me up. But you guys got to not misquote me. And then to tell me that I need an improvement and I need to pay for it on something that you guys did that hurt me is ridiculous. And I don't think that the alternate 4, I don't think that's a good solution either until the whole system is looked at. Because now you're dumping more money into it. And now I'm very fearful that they're going to be developing the sod farms in the future, and that's all floodplain. The other thing is behind Catherine Decker's house, they're going to be putting in what's called the Nature's Refuge development. They've already started phase 1, that's done. They should call it Nature's Slaughter, but that's all on wetlands. Then the city's planning on putting a road in through there. I just heard that we have to pay you guys what a credit, it's $130,000. Is the city of Lino Lakes paying for that then when they put their road in? They want to pack 90 houses onto 60 acres and half of it's wetlands with a natural gas pipe that they can't even build on. So they're packing them in tight. So they want to go R2 instead of R1, which means they're going to be like 0.3 acres a piece, if that. I don't know. But anyway, what's going on now is the Coon Creek thing's messed up because Blaine's done all that development. So we're getting more water coming that way. But because it's screwed up and we don't know what's going on with it, we need to have an engineer come in and look at the whole thing. And I know you guys don't want to open up that can of worms because it's going to be expensive. And I'm not going to be going out on my farm where my cows are, my bulls running around, I got horses and this and that, and calling for a permit to maintain my historic drainage areas. You guys haven't maintained anything. I'm not coming in here gunslinging, but you guys got to remember the first time I came down here to talk to you guys, it was literally because you showed up with the city and the DNR. The DNR looked the other way and said, this thing's a mess. The city doesn't know what to do with it. Now I'm being told, hey, you should tell the city that the Andal pipe screwed up. I've been telling the city of Lino that the Andal pipe screwed up for years. How many years do I got to tell somebody? Then you lower the pipe upstream. Where's the logic? What's going on around here? But then you guys hire this outside engineering firm and basically address just me specifically. I thought we were going to talk about 10/22/32, not Christopher Stowe at 426 Pine Street.
Stowe, I think your time is up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a report of the status of the city's efforts on the collapsed culvert?
Mr. President, I don't specifically know. I don't know. Drainage Inspector Schmidt might know about the city's involvement. We just to let you know, we are planning to meet with the city next week to talk about a variety of things related to the system and the collaboration between the city and the district.
Good.
Mr. President, board managers, I believe the Lino City Public Works Director is still out of town. And I've not heard an update on the removal of the sediment, but the actual catch basin has been repaired.
Okay. Nick?
Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, I could offer a few elements if it's.
Go ahead.
You would deem it appropriate. No doubt that we've had long discussions about Anoka Ditch 10/22/32. And the language of the statute 103E can be challenging with its use of terminology. You heard some of it here, and I believe you're acquainted with it improvement versus the design grade or the ASIC, as we call it, the as constructed, subsequently improved condition. True, your engineer, under direction, has looked at the individual and system in its entirety. And we've identified things North Pine Street, at Pine Street and North, that alternative 4 that we're looking to address. The district always retains the ability to undertake interim measures, such as a pumping truck that may be necessary from something jammed in a culvert, as there was some debris. That's what happened at the sod farms. It's not a need for us to replace the culvert immediately and such. Beaver dams are another situation that we have to move as swiftly as possible to address, but it does take some time. Those interim measures and the system's never in what you would say pristine or a definitive condition, right? Because sediment moves and it deposits in different areas, which is why we have the inspection services. The language in your packet, Pine Street, et cetera, it references the public drainage system. So today we're talking about the main trunk, which is the western culvert. The other one to the east is a different branch of the system, and we reference the system in that way. Upstream work was not an improvement. It was work to bring it into alignment with the ASIC, that design grade that the board previously approved. Lino Lakes, as you may know, they have a moratorium on development in the area. Pine Street South, great big chunk of land. They're undertaking a alternative urban area review, AUAR, to study the area. They've been in contact with staff, asked them to work with their consultant on that matter so they can understand the district's public drainage administration and what that those obligations, responsibilities, and opportunities are for development under 103E. Also deals with the floodplain, your regulations regarding stormwater management and such. We do have a planned meeting, as Chris noted, with the staff, which was your direction at the workshop, when we concluded the engineer's review of the 4 main points that we heard come before you. So we're looking forward to that and continued work to address the system.
Mr. President. Well, go ahead, John.
Mr. President, Chris, I noticed that today in your presentation, you read it off of some papers. And so it was very organized, and I was wondering if you'd be kind enough to submit your written your comments that you read to the district in paper. And I would personally like to be able to have it for future reference, so I can, as a checklist of things to look at.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. If
you want me to just email it to you?
No, email it to Teresa here, and I'm sure there are probably other
I'd like
managers
a copy
would like
myself.
to see it too. Yeah, Manager Wagman wants to see it because it's your presentation that would help me keep it organized. Thank you.
Go ahead. I have anxiety. I don't mean to come off.
Let Steve talk first.
I feel like my first interaction with Rice Creek Watershed District was that I was being bullied by the city of Lino Lakes, and they wanted to shut down my writing facility, and they used you guys as a weapon against me, and they also used the DNR, and they also used the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and I had to spend a significant amount of money on lawyers for this, and that's when I met Rick Wiley, because I know he was going through the same stuff, and but I'm not. I just want I'm common sense. I know it's going to cost a ridiculous amount of money to correct the system the way it is right now. You're talking about blowing your budget out of the water. And no pun intended, but to lower the pipes upstream, if we can lower them downstream and get the stuff flowing, that's all I'm asking for. And then
And then it's, well, your historic pasture out here, when we pull over in those is cattails. Well, you've been flooding it out for 20 years. If I flood it out anybody's yard here in the state of Minnesota for 20 years, I can turn any property in Minnesota into wetlands, flood it out long enough. This time of year, the cattails and the wind blows, they seed everything. It's just like they're like dandelions for the wetlands. So for me to turn my cows a little, you know, I just want the water flowing. I asked about that culvert for years. They said it won't help me lowering it, but it's also collapsed and full of sediment, and the intake's messed up. And then it's, well, it's our responsibility. I'm gonna get the runaround, and then now everybody's backed off because they've realized, oh crap, Mr. Stowe has a point. It's going to cost a ton of money, and I don't even. Maybe you guys don't want to have an engineering field, but maybe just lower the pipes. But the other thing is, I don't like it. I don't like it when people say things like, "Well, this is an opportunity," and they don't say this is a problem.
So,
because right now I have a problem with the city, and because of that, I've had a problem with you. And we can say it's an opportunity, but I just want to tell you guys all that I have a severe drinking opportunity.
So, Mr. President, so Chris, just to be clear, you're agreeing to send your written comments to Teresa on the internet there so I can get a copy of it, and Manager Wagaman. Is that correct? No, I didn't say I'm just we're trying to help you out here so we can have a record of it and see what you're saying. You know, so because I can't take notes that fast during the meeting.
Okay.
Well, we do, but even so, I'd like to see that.
Enough.
Yeah.
I just have one comment on this, and I do agree that the system needs to be looked at from top to bottom. And something I think everybody's forgetting, upstream of what everything he's talking about, we still have a road that covers a complete cattail swamp with one outlet in it. We know that the city's going to fix it. And there was water running through there forever. It's going to run through there again. And downstream has to be able to manage it. And it's going to happen. It's got to be fixed. So
may require an improvement.
Whatever. I mean, I think we need to look at the whole system.
That's why we've asked our people to meet with the city.
Yep.
And it's all together.
And look at it, and I agree.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Let's move on.
10/22/32.
Yep.
So,
Mr. Chair, before we do that, Patrick, could you pull up the map of 10/22/32? Like,
Yes.
it's always good to be able to reference for those of us that don't have it memorized what we're talking about. Thank you.
I had regarding the next agenda item, I have that up. So this is the main trunk of 10/22/32. Location 7, where my cursor is West Pine Street.
I think that math is inaccurate.
And then this is his, and this is Carlos spread that he's talking about. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe for other reference, Mr. Stowe's property is where my cursor is now.
Yep.
The majority of this right here that goes through my place, it doesn't get its water from here. It gets its water from here along this ditch that's uphill, but it's dug deeper and deeper and deeper to run it down. So when it gets to here, it's because you guys are sending water uphill because it used to go behind the school over here.
Mr. Chair.
The other thing is this ditch right here comes in.
Mr. Stowe, please.
It's not accurate.
Manager Bradley, up on the screen is the next agenda item. This is your first action item, ACD 10/22/32. This is the main trunk of the system, the culvert at Pine Street. Tom is here as well. You'll recall our discussions about Pine Street, which is the first element of alternative 4. so this is a decision because we are subject to the Wetland Conservation Act and the mitigation that's required from the culvert lowering. Both Tom and Patrick can speak to it. I think we'll maybe start with Patrick because that's the actual action that you're looking at today.
Yes, thanks, Nick. So in the packet, starting on page 142, there are two cover memos. One is intended to be more from the Drainage Authority side. That's the first one. The second memo is as it relates to the Drainage Authority submitting an application to itself, the regulatory department for the Wetland Conservation Act. There's also a notice of decision and a resolution. So like Nick mentioned, this relates to the board's preference of alternative 4 to restore the main trunk of 102232 at West Pine Street and North. This would be the first application along that system as it's the southern end. This would be to lower the culvert to 897 on the upstream end and 896.9 on the downstream end. This would result in 5.253 acres of wetland impact. Majority of that impact is exempt through subdivision 3 of 8420-0420 in the Wetland Conservation Act. But there would be 1.018 acres of impact to type 3 wetland, which does require replacement. So the district did notice the replacement plan, and this is the action from the board to approve that replacement plan. The impacts would be replaced at a 2-to-1 ratio, and we would utilize credits out of Browns Preserve, the district's wetland bank. One other thing worth noting on the replacement side relates to special considerations 0515 within the Wetland Conservation Act as it relates to threatened and endangered species. The DNR did comment on the application about the potential for the species to be present, but the district has its own internal guidance that we developed with the attorney that we've been implementing since 2017 for all replacement plan applications, public, private, whatever it may be. The key within there is to note that the applicant or their professional that they've hired, if they have a license to access the DNR's Natural Heritage Information System database, they can do their own assessment to the potential presence of those species. Houston Engineering holds such a license. They did the assessment. So it's our finding that this would not have an impact on those species. And so we're saying that the special considerations criteria are met. Happy to go into further detail, or if you'd like Tom to as well. Otherwise, there is the proposed motion on page 144 and the resolution on page 148.
Manager Waller. Mr. President, Patrick, would you clarify for me? It used to be Anoka County was 1-to-1. They're 2-to-1 now. It was Ramsey and Washington were always 2-to-1, but that's a 1-to-1 now, 2-to-1 replacement.
Yes, so it's 2-to-1. That would be consistent with the Wetland Conservation Act, but this is also within the CWPMP. And so the criteria in there, we did assess the quality of the wetland, and utilizing table F1 in our rule, the replacement ratio would be 2-to-1.
So it's the district's rule that makes it 2-to-1, not the
right, a modification of WACA. Yes.
More strictness of the districts than what the state standard would be. Because it's 1-to-1 otherwise, right?
I'm not confident in that in this scenario. Typically, it is 2-to-1 even through the Wetland Conservation.
Well, I mean, I know for years it was 1-to-1 in Anoka County, and so that's what I was wondering. That change at 2-to-1. That
it shouldn't be a change. I believe it would be consistent, even if it wasn't within the CWPMP. It would be 2-to-1.
2-to-1 under this. All right.
Yeah.
Well, this is an item we have discussed at great length, studied at great length. I'm in favor of us taking this action. This is something that we know will do significant benefit of draining 5 acres of land, and that we should therefore, even though it's going to obviously going to cost us some credits, we should do so. I will move.
You know, before you,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say one thing.
He's probably gonna move the item to open for discussion.
Oh, you're moving to open it. I'm sorry. I
That's what I-
apologize.
No, it's
Go-
fine. It's fine.
Go ahead and
Thank you.
do that first. I apologize.
So I'm going to move, I'm going to do it all in one swipe, that we approve resolution number 2024-08, replacement exemption and no loss determination for ACD 1022-32 culvert replacement at West Pine Street. That the Board approves the notice of decision as presented by district staff and authorizes the district administrator to issue the notice of decision with any final non-material changes and distribute it to all in accordance with WACA and its implementing rules. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President. This one has really given me heartburn, and I voted for option 4, but at the time I said that I didn't agree with the elevation, and we talked about that, and we don't need to get into it again. However, this will help people, but I understand people downstream having problems with it also.
That's an additional separate issue, in my opinion. I don't disagree with you. The need to make sure we don't cause more harm than good.
Exactly. That's my concern, that we're not going to just drop the downstream part of it. We need to look at this system and make sure that we're going to do that.
Talked about how we propose to do that.
Okay, as long as we're sticking to that, then okay.
No, it's good. It's going to go to you.
Oh, me? Oh,
Yeah,
you don't want
like
my
you
comments.
look like
You're fine.
Okay.
No, you're
Chris,
fine.
did you have something?
Yeah, Mr. President, Board of Managers, just to address your concern, the lowering of the culvert will have no significant effect for anybody downstream. It isn't going to change the volume of water getting downstream. The same volume of water does get down there. It's just that what it's going to have to do is have the effect of lowering water levels for folks upstream during the rainfall event. So it will not have a significant effect on any of the area downstream.
Okay, you're pretty confident of that.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Mr. President, I see this as a 2 acres, 0.036 replacement of credits that'll be necessary. And we're about, we got a inventory of the acreage, a little, and expected usage forecast a while back from the engineers. And so I don't want to lose, and not that I'm not against this, but I want to be very guarded. And I was surprised to read that the expectation for, or what I recall was expected to be used over in Blaine on 5362 had come down. The estimate for a replacement was much lower than what it was. It was like, went down to about 16 acres for the Metro Gun Club or something like that. So I just want to verify that again with the engineer that we're going to be safe here, and we're on our use of our credits.
Reasonably
Prudent.
Nick?
Manager Bradley, thank you, Board of Managers. On the table that Manager Waller is referring to in our anticipated use of wetland credit is based on the best information we have available. Some of those haven't developed sufficiently that we can better say the amount. The Metro shooting assessment is based on the same Houston memo that, I don't know, from 7 years ago or so, when that computation was done for allocating credits to the Browns wetland bank. And I know Chris had something to say. Maybe it's along those lines.
Chris?
Yeah, I would concur with what Nick said. Those figures that we gave projecting into the future, other than this specific one here, which we have a defined level of replacement for, all of the other ones are really again, based on our best information, and they can vary significantly. So I wouldn't put a lot of stock into any of the exact numbers in those tables for future projections, because all of them are subject to change. Even we have multiple future public drainage system repairs that are planned, Ramsey Washington JD1 and Oakland Ramsey JD1. We have guesstimates in there for those repair efforts for replacement, but we have not done any analysis yet on those. So again, I would take caution with thinking of those as exact numbers at all.
Mr. President, I just have one quick comment.
Yes,
I know you guys have had conversations and are working on that. Could we get an update on that at the workshop?
What?
On the issue that we were just talking about, where he's talking about the credits.
Well, we did that. That was at the workshop you apparently missed.
Okay.
You brought to us a sheet.
No, I saw that. I'm not talking about the credits. I'm talking about where we are on discussions with them on that project.
Post?
Yes.
No.
Real quick for context, it is my understanding that new delineations are being done and should be completed, I think, this week, because that property in its totality is going to be listed on the commercial market. It is kind of softly out there right now. So new delineations are being done, and I'm sure those new delineations will be very helpful as we try to estimate wetland, banking credits that need to, meet the terms of all the happy legal things going on behind the scenes. So that is being done currently.
Good. Good.
Nick?
Yes, thank you. Manager Bradley, Board Manager, 2 more points in regards to the table and the wetland credit use. Not only is it projected into the future on the best information we have available, that also applies to the changes that the legislature made to the Wetland Conservation Act, in which this application was under the wire to be done on the existing rule. But now in the future, drainage will be applicable to all wetland types, where this is just type 3 and the rest is exempt. Now, the typing and all that remains to be seen. So that may be good or bad. We'll wait and see, but it adds to the best guess that we have. One more important item in regards to the action you're considering today and discussing on page 149 in the resolution, the second and third whereas, or from the second whereas on down, speak to that threatened endangered matter that Patrick referenced. So the district's looked through its engineer, who holds a license to do so. And I'm simplifying it, of course. DNR came back and said, hey, go survey the area. We said, basically, well, what's the basis for that? We've done the initial, and the statute doesn't require what you're asking of us. And so following the district's own internal guidance and our reading of the statute, find that we're in good standing. What response may come from the state remains to be seen. And I would defer Manager Bradley to Chris if I misspoke or he wants to clarify any of that.
Mr. President, Board of Managers, no, I think Nick is right on with that. We reviewed, did a technical analysis and have reviewed that there's no rational reason to take the additional expense for the public of doing a survey where it's not warranted.
Sincerely hope we'll be successful in that. We should be. It has no impact on the motion today.
So, Mr. President, since we were informed today about new things that the legislature blessed us with, I was hoping that maybe I thought I had heard some months ago that we were going to get an update on that sooner or later, and I'd like to just ask for it. you know, to remind it, we do have, I'd like to hear what other
I'm sure he'd like.
pieces of wisdom.
I'm sure our staff would like to hear it too.
Yeah.
I bet they're waiting.
Thank you, Manager Bradley. Board of Managers, correct. Bowser has projected a future meeting date where they'll disclose how they're revising the rules accordingly, but we haven't seen it yet, so we can't tell you.
All right, well, then, that's all I want to know.
So
thank you.
At that point, I'd like to, it's a roll call. In favor, Bradley, yes. Robertson,
No.
Wagaman,
No.
Waller.
No.
What are you gonna do?
Yes, yes.
So you just.
Wait a second. If
We're gonna continue to flood their land.
No.
City's approval.
Just hold on.
Well, if I could comment really quickly, when this came before the Board of Managers last year or earlier this year regarding options, I did not vote in favor of the options. Now, I also did not have dialogue with these gentlemen. I was just trying to be consistent with that. I didn't feel that alternative 4 was a broad fix for a myriad of issues. That's why I voted no the first time. That's why I voted no now. I was unaware of this.
I would like to say something. I thought it was going to pass, and honestly, I think it should pass. And I will change my vote to yes, because if we're making the promise that we're gonna look at the downstream and not forget it, then I don't. Then I think it's okay if we're not dropping the ball.
Yeah, Manager Bradley, if I could address the board, thank you. Board of Managers, all of this has a very long history. This is part of your systematic review of all your public drainage systems, where you've looked at the historic record, what individuals did on the landscape with consent or not. Some of the records are missing, etc. And you've defined an ASIC, the as constructed, subsequently improved condition. And from that, the direction of the board or the direction of the district has been to bring the systems to that functioning level. In alternative 4, this is the first step to bring it to that functioning level. And so that it would restore to the landowners what was originally envisioned and adopted by our counties back in the 1900s to create the system on that record.
So address Manager Robertson's concern. There's limits of what we as the watershed can do. We have a specific mandate to clean our ditches to the ASICs. We have the ability to work with the cities of Lino Lakes and the cities of Columbus to try to come up with a systematic solution if there is one. And we've asked and directed our staff to pull together a meeting that will eventually include us of those two cities to brainstorm opportunities. We've got several plans. We've got one on the Ramsey County. We've got one in Forest Lake. We ought to have one in Columbus and Lino Lakes to try to get our arms around too much water. That's the problem. There's too much water.
Okay. I understand that you don't appreciate my no vote, just like it wasn't appreciated when I voted no the first time, because there was some dialogue that there was some political undertone. There's not. As stated earlier today, listen, I am the least educated here, but what it doesn't feel like, and it hasn't felt like to me from the beginning, is a solution, a permanent solution, because what I have experienced, and this is me, okay, again, this is why I get one vote and y'all get one vote. Every time we dialogue ASIC, we have some resident coming in here telling us that our interpretation of that ASIC is incorrect, that's wrong. We still have properties that are flooded, and I get it, but this just does not, alternative 4 never felt like a long-term realistic fix to what has been years and years worth of flooding. And again, you don't have to like my no vote. It's not personal. It's not personal. It's my vote. And that's how I used it, because I just never felt from the beginning that alternative 4 was a perfect option. Now there may not be a perfect option, but again, it is my right and authority to vote how I want to. And that's why I voted that way. It wasn't personal. I'm not arguing with staff. I'm not even arguing with you, but I mean, I don't need to certainly be explained to why I shouldn't vote that way, because it's my ability to vote however I darn want to.
Well,
So, Mr. Chair, has the motion failed?
It had failed.
All right.
It has.
So then
failed,
we can
so
move
if
on.
I change my vote or not, and
So are you asking us to reopen the vote?
you know, the more I think about it, the madder it makes me when I hear Nick talk. And we should be doing this piecemeal, a piece at a time, is trying to get to the point where we can't do the whole thing right.
Well,
I don't
Mr.
understand why
President,
we're doing this one little chunk.
This is a very difficult situation. We thought we were going down one way. We've made a strategic change in how we're going to solve this problem by.
Not made a change. We've stopped change.
We have made a strategic change, in my opinion, to include and work with the cities for a larger, more comprehensive solution to this than just the limits that are provided for by the capacity of the drainage system.
Right. Exactly.
And so today's delay isn't going to make much difference until we sit down with those cities to see how we can increase the amount of drainage for a comprehensive solution.
But how many years have we been? It's going to take 20 years.
No, it's not going to take 20 years. I've been doing this for quite a while, sir.
Look at how much long it's taken us to work on 2, 3, and 5 in Ramsey County.
Well, that is Ramsey County, yes. But it's a much more, it's a much more Ramsey County situation in 2, 3, and 5. And as you pointed out a long time ago, you read that I made the motion to make that done. You know, and I've been a promoter of drainage all the time. I'm saying to you is that 2, 3, 5 needs a lot of rebuild, and a lot. It's very expensive.
We need to.
This is open ground we can work with. Yeah,
there is no way that any solution that we come up with that's global, that provides for storage or whatever, isn't going to include the need to fix this Pine Street.
Mr. Chair, I would call a point of order because I think we've already voted on this, correct? Would that be the correct Robert's rules language there, Mr. Attorney? Since we've already ruled, I can't call the question. There's already been a vote taken on this matter. Is that correct? Chuck? Sorry, Attorney.
Mr. Chair.
Attorney Chuck?
I did not, but I didn't change my vote. I said
Hold on just a second.
Willing to,
But if you're willing to,
I'm not willing to, because
right, then let's
after
move
what
on.
I heard, I
Let's
think
move
we
on.
need a
so
comprehensive.
I will tell you that I will not be in favor of moving forward at all. And you guys have caused this problem.
First of all, not you guys. Don't you guys me.
Yeah, you-
My vote is
guys,
my vote is my vote. Don't you guys
Manager
me.
Bradley, might I share the next item on the agenda?
Can I would like to say.
Wait, I did call a point of order, and I believe when a point of order is called that needs to be acknowledged by the chair. Is that correct, Chuck?
It's acknowledged.
Thank
Go
you. So
ahead.
now you get to move on.
Nick, move to district records retention, please.
Sorry to jump in, just a legality question. It's a WAC application. Do we have to do a formal denial? Just a question to Chuck.
Mr. Chair, managers, yeah, first of all, just to clarify, as Patrick said, the vote was not about whether to proceed with the work. It was simply a vote on the WACA application. And nevertheless, by denying it, you've put it in a posture where there needs to be more discussion. Strictly speaking, under WACA, if you vote to deny, you do need to state on the record the reasons for the denial. Practically speaking, I don't think that the district is going to appeal its own decision. So I think that's not that important in this case. And I think the rationale can be drawn from the discussion that you had.
Next item, please.
Board of Managers, next item on your agenda is found on page 152 of the packet. It is the district's record retention schedule. As you may know, the district is obligated under Minnesota statutes to preserve its records of the district's official activities. The district has fulfilled this obligation, as many others do, with the adoption and administration of the applicable sections of the General Records Retention Schedule for Minnesota cities. This is maintained by the Minnesota Historical Society. The Minnesota Historical Society revised its schedule. It's come to our attention, and staff recommend that the Board of Managers adopt the new schedule. None of the changes on that schedule have a definitive change in our situation. The district's practice is to transfer records of interest to the Minnesota Historical Society, consistent with its needs and interests. They don't want all of our materials, but we're giving them the opportunity to retain it. Yet at the same time, the district retains all of its records within its electronic Laserfish file at Rice Creek. So with that, there is a proposed motion on page 152, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'm ready to move the resolution.
Please.
I move that we adopt resolution number 2024-09, that the Board of Managers hereby adopt the March 2021 Minnesota City Schedule, and be it further resolved that the district administrator is to amend the policy manual and the staff policies and procedures by which the district manages its records and to reflect this action.
Second.
Any discussion? A roll call. Bradley, yes. Waller.
Yes.
Wogman.
Yes.
Wynant.
Yes.
Robertson.
Aye.
Next item.
Board of Managers, your next item is on page 254 of your packet. It is the Washington Conservation District 2025 Inspection Services Contract. Patrick is here to address that item.
Yes, Board of Managers. Since September of 2022, Rice Creek has been in an agreement with the Washington Conservation District for inspection services as it relates to permits. The agreement has been amended a couple times, and now it is coming to an expiration here on December 31st of 2024. We have seen great value from this partnership. It's a great assistance in managing all the open permits we have and getting to, regular frequent inspections. So we would be looking to extend the agreement for an additional year until December 31st of 2025. To date, the total amount of hours and total not to exceed cost have not been exceeded by the Conservation District, but we would need to increase those amounts to get us to the end of next year. So we'd be looking to increase the total amount of hours in the service period from 750 to 1,100, and the not to exceed amount from $40,500 to $66,000. Also included here in the packet is the Third Amendment document, which has been signed by the Washington Conservation District. I've also included their 2025 technical services rate schedule that they would use for billing, and then the original agreement itself. So unless there's any questions, staff recommendation is for the board to approve, and there's a proposed motion on page 255.
Any questions to Patrick?
Mr. President. So Patrick, I see these rates are published there, and is there any possibility, or do they always use the top figure of 66,000? Or does it sometimes come in that they're back at the 40,000? Is this based on a demand? If there's no demand there and we don't use them for the inspectors, we pay zero of it if we never used any of them.
Yep. The agreement sets the maximum amount, so it's a not to exceed number. So if they had no permits, then it's not like we're adding cost. And just for clarity, the the 66,000 would be a total from September 22 until the end of 2025. It would be the total term there.
And that's a pretty healthy increase, Patrick, about 33% or 50% if you look at it, 66 versus the 40. What's going on here that we have because Matamidi and Willarney and Birchwood aren't exactly booming areas.
Well,
are they in other parts of Washington County? Or Hugo does their own. So are they doing the Forest Lake or what's going on here that would cause that boom?
No changes in the inspection area. It's just based on the increase is consistent with the work that we've seen. We receive monthly invoices from the Conservation District, which shows exactly what permits have been inspected, and it then we keep track of the total hours and the total cost. So, the increase is, I'd say, pretty consistent if we've had 2023, 2024, and 2025. We had a couple months there in 2022. So I'd say it's pretty consistent. And then the service rates have increased as well. So that also plays a factor.
50%?
I'm sorry, what's the 50%?
Well, 66,000 versus 40 grand. That's 26,000. 26,000 is over 50% of the original 40 contract. And just, I understand rate increases, but I mean, I was kind of surprised at the numbers.
Oh, sorry.
President Bradley?
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, it's for the extension of the term. The 66,000 is applied across the entire term. So the difference between the 40,500, which I heard Patrick to say to date hasn't been totally utilized, but given the rate increases, the unknown economy and how many permits the district would see and the additional term, he's saying let's advance to $66,000, and so that whatever it is, $26,000 is in the coming year, and you'd spend it as needed, and you've budgeted accordingly for that. I hope that some clarity.
What you're saying is that you're budgeting. You're not saying that's what it's going to be. You're just trying to be prepared.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wegman, yes. You are entering into a contract with that entity to do inspections based on the work that the team would distribute to them as development comes in. Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
Done.
Okay.
So you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll authorize the administrator to amend the Washington Conservation District Inspection Services Agreement for a term extension through December 31, 2025 with an aggregate spending authority not to exceed $66,000.
Second.
So discussion.
Just one last remark from me, sir, if you please. You haven't used the 40,000 already up. We're doggone near the end of the year. I mean, you might be at 38. I don't know. But my point here is that is a tremendous amount of increase in this budget item. I know there's increases according to rates and such, but I just that's kind of a surprise to me that even though they may not use it all and it's invoiced, and I understand, but there's a lot of slack in there. So, Mr. President, I'm ready.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, we're up to the professional services proposal. Nick?
Yes, Board of Managers, next item, as you said, is a professional services proposals. That is found on page 267 in your packet. My hope is that you've brought with you the non-public data material from the previous meeting. As way of introduction, this was on the October 7th workshop. Board consensus was to bring it to this October 23rd meeting for the full Board of Managers to discuss and give guidance, direction. Your current professionals are providing services under contract two of which are in the room, Houston Engineering, Smith Partners, Rinke Noonan, all those. I would share with you that those are the entities that I see at trainings, conferences, and other matters important to watershed work. Certainly you would know ahead of today if staff found issues with the professionals that we had current relationships with. In any regard, it is certainly your prerogative to do as you like. We still retain, that is Rice Creek retains that pool. You'll recall that Matt used that pool for the Highway 61 ponds. And so the board's task today is to reach consensus on the firms to fulfill its professional service needs. With that, you would give me the opportunity to enter into contracts with them and return to you with those so that they could beginning of next year.
So if I may summarize the discussion we had at the workshop, we certainly didn't want to have a vote without you present and available. We did have significant discussion on it. And if I may paraphrase the discussion on the engineer, the thinking was that replacing Houston Engineering would be a major cost to us that we don't.
I am actually going to abstain from the engineering.
That's fine. Okay.
Just on the engineering one because of the personal nature of the issue. So I would, that's not a problem.
But anyway, that was on the engineering.
Thank you.
On legal, we are blessed to have the two best law firms in the state who do this. We have the best drainage lawyer. We have the best general business lawyers. So we would like to we thought we would continue both law firms. Redpath, no one else wants to do that job. We have an existing information technology. Is that which one of those, Nick? Who's the existing information technology?
That would be Rymark.
Rymark. We're pleased with Rymark's work. Pitch HR is from Georgia, if I remember correctly. We just thought we would not hire a person at this time, but rather would reserve the right, as we always have, to on case-by-case basis to hire somebody to help us with the work, whether it was Smith Partners or whether it was Ellen, who was previously assisted us, or some other person. So that was the discussion we had, and I open up for any further comments if either one of you would like to make. Oh, you were there.
I just have a logistical question. This is something that we obviously do every 2 years. The term on this is what, end of this calendar year? Is that correct? Like, we're reviewing RFPs for 25-26, correct? So this is ending where we are currently, the end of this year.
Correct.
So when we go through an RFP process, like, what does that look like for the watershed? Where does that get published? How is that, how is that announced to, the engineering world, the consulting world, the legal world? How do we put that information out there?
Yep. So we developed the RFP. It's posted on, of course, the district's paper of record. It was posted at the League of Minnesota Cities, and it's provided to those entities that currently hold relationships with us. Okay. Manager Bradley.
Yes.
If I could, Manager Robertson, maybe it's helpful to know that I want to be clear about this. There were different additional inquiries, but they were about the district pool. In other words, they were saying, we don't want to be your day-to-day engineer, but if a project comes up, we want to be involved in that. And so I had several phone calls where I clarified definitively what we were asking for: long-term, day-to-day professional services, and then gave them the opportunity, the document by which to be in the district's pool. And that, again, is what Matt used when he talked about the Highway 61 ponds.
Yeah, I get it. We have something similar to the city, like a preferred vendor, pre-approved thing that streamlines the process between, electeds and the body. Can I ask a really silly question that I've never asked in here before? And Chuck, this is not directed at your fine legal skills. Why do we have two law firms? I'm just asking. I understand there's a lot of interpretation and broad scope as it relates to environmental and all these things. I'm genuinely asking that question.
Yeah.
But Nick?
I'll give you my perspective on it. Rinky Noonan is the recognized expert on drainage.
Yeah.
They are also located in St. Cloud. So every time you want them in the office, you've got a 2-hour drive each way for their attendance. It's more convenient to have Smith Partners, who's located in Minneapolis. But more importantly, Smith Partners is a recognized general expert on general regulation process, and it reflects the fact that they are hired by almost all of the watershed districts in the state. So, I mean, so it's a matter of that we have the opportunity to have the best in their respective areas represented in those respective areas.
Okay, go ahead, next.
Manager Bradley, if I could, Manager Robertson, to augment what Manager Bradley shared, I'll just say that this I understand occurred just before I came on board in 2008, and the new administrator at that time, or fairly new administrator, Doug Thomas, was challenged with the task of what are we going to do about public drainage? And so we looked for a solution in how the district, being a metro watershed with public drainage systems, would navigate 103E drainage law, along with its other authorities, 103B and 103D. And so that's where Rinky Noonan and John Kolb came on board, and it was part of that collaboration that developed the direction that we're been under for the last 10, 15 years.
18
years.
Mm-hmm.
In the one of the underlying essence, important parts of that collaboration is that when public drainage is worked on, you have the benefited party roles, which were established back in the 1800s, and you've had all this metropolitan subdivision of parcels, and that in and of itself, to redefine the benefit roles would be, like hundreds of thousands of dollars of work to get that. And the use of 103 D and B as an alternative, it's a project, helps to mitigate that cost from the public.
So just so I'm interpreting, one can't do both. One law firm can't do both things. Well, that's not what I asked, though. I asked a yes or no question. Can one do both?
Sure, of course it could.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
So, Mr. President.
But so I was the equivalent of either one of those guys in my practice. I was a regulatory attorney. You wouldn't have wanted to hire me as a business attorney. I could do it, and I did do it.
Mm-hmm.
But you wouldn't if you knew what you're doing. So I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, we got two highly qualified firms in their lanes, and we're benefited by having them. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I wasn't at that workshop either, but I would just like to indicate that I agree with the consensus that you laid out that was met at the workshop.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, John.
First of all, I'd point out about the engineers that the price increase under Houston's application was smaller than the others that we have in the packet, at least. Second, over the years, I have never voted for Smith Partners, and I will not today either. I have a philosophical disagreement with them, and I don't believe that, and I was a proponent of hiring Rinky Noonan. Rinky Noonan has a long history in this state of water and drainage law, and they are a broad-based firm. They have plenty of business lawyers there and ability. And as far as the transport issue about them being 2 hours away, well, since this COVID business, we start doing things over the internet with the video. We've even done that with Smith Partners here in the cities. So I think that I would prefer myself that we go to one attorney, and I prefer to go to Ricky Noonan. The reason for that being is they were the ones who were the involved in the development of our recent plan. They've been in the development of our drainage system, which hasn't quite taken 20 years yet, 18. And we've gotten a lot of ditches cleaned. In just my time on the board, I think we've got all of them except Ramsey County 1 now. We've done some portions on 5 and 4, and 2 that was done before I was here. But I've been involved in all of them. And I think that you have a just as competent and wide a range of firm and far more legal expertise with the business firm up at Ricky Noonan, and decades. They were involved in the original Watershed law formations back in the 50s. And so they're out. That's my point of view.
What I will propose then is that we do a separate vote on legal, do a singular vote for selecting Houston,
the accountant.
Was this a vote or is this just?
This is gonna be a motion.
Well,
Is it consensus?
It's just consensus.
yeah.
It's a staff issue.
Manager
Okay.
Bradley, you could proceed in either way. You can just give me consensus direction or you could vote on it. Yep.
Well, on the legal, I think it's no secret that I thought we've spent way too much on legal since I started on the board. I would say Smith Partners has been fabulous with me personally. When I've called them, I've gotten excellent responses, great answers to my questions, fantastic service. I've had Lewis step out of meetings to answer the phone when I've called him. And I mean, I think they're top notch that way. However, I think you come at things from a different lens than I do, or look at things through a different lens than I do, or philosophy, or however you want to put it. And I think probably the reason, I'm taking a wild guess, but the reason Jess probably asked that is I know that I received several phone calls from entities in Anoka County who I represent that have the same concern. No complaints about them, but that they think that they have a completely different point of view on things.
Who's them?
I'm not
I can't speak
I
for.
was just trying to understand your statement. Who them?
them is the entities in
Are they in favor of Smith or in favor of Ringy?
They did not want to have Smith Partners.
Okay.
And not because they thought that they were a bad firm. They thought they had they viewed things through a different lens than they did. And I agree. It's exactly the same way I feel. I think that they're fantastic. And I mean, and I'd recommend them to somebody who had that looked through the same lens that they did. I would recommend them in a minute, but the people that I'm representing want to change. And it was crystal clear. So I will be voting for Rinky Noonan, and I feel bad because I think Smith Partners has done a great job for us. But I mean, I have to qualify that. I disagree with a lot of their philosophically. I completely disagree, and I think that's where the issue is. Anyways.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I don't know what conversations you had. I appreciate you inferring that might be my thought process. Mine is actually prompted by my colleagues at the Board of Commissioners, the county board. I do check in frequently since we are all here at the leisure of our county. It was discussed with me to, is there an openness to explore other options? And that was it. It wasn't a targeted thing. It was just like, you're going through this process. We talked about some regulatory things, which has been a topic of discussion here before. So that's what prompted it. I have no personal,
No.
like,
All right.
opinion one way or the other. I understand how RFP processes work. I totally get that. And that's why I asked. That's what prompted the ask, was that was some of the direction that I had been given from Anoka County. Like Anoka County as the governing agency, not independent cities within Anoka County.
It looks like we have an issue here on the legal side. I would recommend that we do not change anything over the next year as we go forward, because switching horses right now, I think might give us some heartburn if this is an issue that's coming from the folks that you represent. I would like to hear more of it at another date, but for now, as we move into 2025, I think we need to continue with the folks that we have.
Why?
Because I think changing your legal representation is a huge transition. So let's just, and this is the first time I've heard what you are saying and your concerns about Anoka County.
Clearly, I've heard no concerns.
And that's okay. I mean, every county's different.
Right.
Different.
Right. I would just say
exactly. I understand, and I have nothing personal against Smith Partners at all.
But it sounds like it sounds like the two of you are saying
my voice is independent of what.
I
want to be so clear about that. I don't like being lumped into some.
No. I'm just hearing you saying something different than what Steve is saying, but I don't get the sense that there will be a consensus.
Can I ask a question that I wonder if you would be open to? What if we? I mean, I can go back to Anoka County certainly and be like, what is it specifically? And I'm happy to share that. Would there be an opportunity? I agree. Maybe don't full send what is in here currently as it relates to legal. What if we reopen the RFP process specific to that legal? I don't know. Listen.
Do we have time to do that?
Well, the contract goes through the end of the year, but I mean, I don't know. I hear what you're saying. And again, I'm certainly not trying to be combative by all means. I'm sharing the feedback that I have. I mean, I would have to imagine 99.9% of the residents within the watershed probably literally don't give a hoot about this, but I'm only sharing the feedback that I have. Is my responsibility to do so. So
Manager Bradley?
Yes, please.
If I could. Board of Managers, I would say my job here today is to provide you what you need to move into a decision and give me guidance in the development of those contracts. So what specifically you need, I guess, is on the table to make that decision. We are nearing the end of the year. I think reopening the RFP isn't really necessary. You have an opportunity to apply, and you have two before you. If there's details in the approach or the work that these entities are doing, any of them for that matter, we can certainly have you dialogue with their representatives or that sort of thing. And to Manager Winans' comment and changing horses, if you will. There'll be definitively a matter of significant staff work to do that, but that shouldn't derail you from something you see that needs to be addressed, and you could ask for the.
I may make a suggestion. And sorry, Chuck, I don't think we should talk to you about this, okay? Because we're discussing.
Yeah.
So, we've got in November, we could ask each of the two law firms to come and make a 15-minute presentation to us. It would give me an opportunity, because I didn't study it, but cost differences. I believe there is a significant cost difference between Smith and Ricky Noonan, but I don't know that for a fact at this point because I didn't really study it. I didn't think this was going to be an issue. So if that's what you want to do, we could certainly ask them to come at the November, because November is such a short already workshop, but make a presentation to us for 15 minutes. Immediately following that, we need to make a decision.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
So, Mr. President, are you saying that today that the staff would be authorized to develop the contract with the for the engineer, accountant, information technology, and none for the human resources, and that we leave the legal until the workshop?
Until the workshop.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
I don't have any problem with leaving the workshop, but I just don't see any need to.
Well, I understand your long-standing 18-year fight about trying to get everyone who's ever had anything to do with ditch 2 removed, but this is not an issue for today.
Well, we're our main business here is ditches, and that's what we do most of our spending our money on and our time.
Which is why we have Ricky,
and it's why we have Ricky Noon. And they're more than competent to do permitting. That's the other big thing that's left to be done. That's all.
I'm very happy to list, to wait for a workshop and hear the presentations.
On legal.
As long as, on the legal.
Legal.
Yep, and then we make a decision at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessary, because I guess I'm listening to what my constituents are saying, but I'm more than happy to wait and listen.
Manager.
Pardon me, just a moment. So I think you have pretty close to your direction, but I was going to say that this isn't just my personal experience with Smith Partners. My constituents also are been unhappy with some of the stances that they've taken over the years. So it's it's not an isolated or personal event as you made it sound like with me. And I object to that. I just want to make the record clear that I've received also requests not to renew over the many years the contract with them.
Can I ask a quick question, Mr. Chair? Nick, can you estimate, and I tried to go through while we were sitting in here, all of the, the little budget expense breakdowns that we have in here. Can you estimate just approximately in ballpark, the annual total in legal fees that we pay? Right. It's significant, right? But the reason I ask that isn't because I'm trying to I gotcha. It's nothing like that. I think that it is due to the nature of the amount of dollars that are spent annually on legal fees. And I totally understand why reviewing applications, all the things, I get it. I do think that it warrants, an additional conversation, because it is a significant, if, let's just say my math, well, it's trash. My math's not great, but just if we're ballparking, it's well over $300,000 a year. And so, it's a significant piece of the watershed's budget. And I do think that it would merit additional conversation. So, I'm totally happy to leave the legal component out of what we're discussing today if you're looking for consensus, and to re-engage that conversation. And between then and now, whenever that is, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to get additional context or talking points. If Anoka County has those, I'm happy to provide that.
And I'm happy to reach out too and come back with anything I can.
Good. Just check. Since this involves your employment, I'm not sure that you should speak, but go ahead.
Well, Mr. Chair, I won't speak to your choice. It's your prerogative, and we're more than happy to come in November and talk with you about it. I just wanted to say one thing in response to what Manager Wagman raised and Manager Waller, which is, as a professional matter, we don't approach anything we do with you through an ideological lens. We look at what your goals are and your priorities, your policies, and how you want to proceed with your business, and we give you the best advice on the law and the practical considerations in proceeding that way. And I've not been aware of a perception that we bring an ideological bent, as suggested by other folks, outside constituents. We would, of course, be very interested to hear that and to see if we could work through that, because that's not the way we approach our work, and it wouldn't be professional of us to do it that way.
Excellent point.
Thank you. I'm very happy to listen to your presentation when you come in.
All right, Nick, you got what we can get out of this today?
Yes, Board of Managers, I understand that I will proceed to develop contracts with Houston Engineering, Redpath and Company, and Rymark. In November, your hope is to have representatives of Rinke Noonan and Smith Partners speak to you. I noted as interviews. I'll just make note of what indeed you're looking for will be important to the response. And it makes me think of the large amount of money that the district paid to its past engineer, which to obtain its own records back, in which we worked with Houston Engineering. We developed or they developed to make sure they were meeting the district's interests. They developed a manual of, here's all the protocols. This is how we do business between two professional organizations. That aside, boy, the November workshop's going to be very busy. I would suggest we look at maybe
Snacks is what you're saying?
Lunch.
Two meetings or
we don't have a second meeting in November because of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
we could have one. We could be
a problem with the November one.
correct. Yes. So if my recount of the direction you're giving me is correct, then we can pick up on what we do about the meeting further on the agenda.
Yeah, but I'm thinking we could do this also in December, and there's no reason, since if we have to do a vote, we'll do a vote there at the workshop.
It's perfectly legit.
Yeah.
It's a business meeting.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
Next item on the agenda.
Yeah.
All right, so did we actually take a
Manager Bradley, if I could, I'll state it once more.
right. Okay.
I have consensus direction to work with Houston Engineering, Redpath, and Rymark to develop contracts to bring back to you for approval. And we'll look for a future date at which you'd like to speak with representatives of Rinke Noonan and Smith Partners regarding legal services. All right, next item on the agenda is the check register.
Mr. Chair, before I make the motion to approve this, in aligning with what we just discussed, I would let you know that at the advice of the former treasurer, I will often ask to pull particular invoices out. And often the largest ones are from Houston and Rinke Noonan, and at certain times Smith Partners, to see where those charges are going to. So I am tracking that, and it seems to be very consistent, and it makes sense. If it's done with a particular drainage system, it goes to that. If it's something to do with another project. So the record keeping on the invoices is excellent.
I agree.
And Teresa does a fabulous job tracking it. You all are now getting credit card information as well as other information as needed. So kudos to Teresa, to Redpath. So our finances are duly recorded. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would move that I would move to approve the check register dated October 23rd, 2024 in the amount of $347,918.80. and the interim financial statement prepared by Red Path and Company.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nick, staff reports?
Correct.
Anyone have any questions about staff reports?
Yeah. No questions, but of course I have to comment. The paddle day sounded fun.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can see when you're out there on the water. And Nick, it looks like you've got a full staff.
That is correct.
Yes. So you might have reported on the most recent one at a workshop or the meeting that I missed.
Right.
Any other openings out there, or are you fully staffed?
For me? Board of Managers, yes, we're fully staffed. I'll be presenting you with a organizational chart that has the names of those individuals. So
Fabulous.
it might be useful to recognize when they come before you or you see their name in the work.
Fabulous. Thank you. And I love these reports. I mean, we tend to get into the specific items at this board table, but there's lots of work going on. So thank you.
I believe that takes us to the calendar.
Yes, Board of Managers on the very last page of your packet, page 320, is the November calendar. The Wednesday, November 13th, you'll see the City County Partner Meeting. That is now a confirmed date. That is at Moore Lake Community Building.
At the beautiful new building.
Correct.
Fabulous.
So that's from 1 to 3. I'll note that Kendra will do my hello intro on my behalf. I'll be scheduled away at Floodplain Manager Continuing Education. Also, if you would look at Tuesday, the 12th, this meeting is of the Washington County Board is also on Tuesday, the 12th. The Washington County Board meeting is the one scheduled to include its annual watershed budget review. There's no definitive time for that on their agenda until it gets closer. My recollection is it's usually just ahead or around the lunch hour. So we can notice that for a quorum of our board that may be present there. I know a number of you have appeared in the past, but obviously it coinciding with the Rice Creek workshop, that is because of Veterans Day. So we could move the Rice Creek meeting to the workshop meeting to the afternoon. We schedule 3 hours for that meeting. So that'd be 1 to 4 on Tuesday, the 12th. There are a number of policy matters I have on there for handbook items that I intend to bring to that workshop. You've just brought professional services to that meeting or one in that vicinity. So for ease of moving through that information, we could try and do it all on the afternoon of the 12th, if that works. You could consider an alternative of Monday, the 18th as a regular workshop meeting from 9 to 12. It's regular time or a combination of the two.
Oh boy.
So
it depends on how long your discussion is likely to be.
To the extent that we want to use the workshop as a shortening of the Wednesday meeting, it would help if we could do it Tuesday afternoon.
I can't do it Tuesday afternoon.
Okay.
And why you're suggesting the afternoon so folks could be at the Washington County?
Yes, and I would.
Can we be can we remotely hear it or present while we're in the workshop? Do you
Manager Bradley, Manager Winan? So the Washington annual watershed budget meeting is one where we've provided them with a project and budget information by which they may compare us to other watersheds and ask questions. I think we've provided that information accordingly. And I think Washington County would just like us to ensure that a staff person would be made available to answer any questions that they have. So I could do that and still be present at our own meeting, selecting a different staff to do so. Otherwise, I simply know Manager Waller has attended in the past those meetings. I suspect he'd like to do the same this year. Yeah, Manager Bradley, you've been there. Manager Preiner, when she was previously on the board, attended at sometimes, I believe, as well.
So it's not a given, there's not a time certain for that.
Nope.
Presentation at Washington County.
Correct. I was informed that it would not be until the Friday before that they could estimate better. However, as you've seen in your own meeting today, the times are estimates or best projections of how the meeting may flow.
Mr. President, the presentation at Washington County that annually happens and has for as long as I can remember being on this board, takes place as a workshop after the county board meeting. So that's why they can't estimate as to what they're going to do, because they have their regular county board meeting and then they go into a workshop, which becomes the presentation of this from the watershed districts in Washington County and the WMOs. And I will attend it, yes. Yeah.
So even if we do schedule the workshop from 1 to 4 or 5, there's no certainty that Washington County presentation would occur before or after that.
Would surprise me if we didn't get done in time to be able to make a 1 o'clock meeting based on past experience.
Can everyone else make the 1 o'clock meeting?
Wait,
That's the question.
1 to 5 on what day?
Tuesday.
Okay.
The 12th.
I probably can.
Government gets weird, right? When I have multiple responsibilities in multiple government entities and there's a government, like a holiday, then everything gets pushed wackadoodle. Because I have a feeling that that is my Met Council time is what's going to happen. I'll have to double check if an email goes out saying, hey, like, does this work? I'll have to double check because all my stuff gets pushed with that holiday.
The alternative is the 18th, but recognize that then whatever we do there will be pushed off to the December, which is probably fine.
Yeah. The 18th is difficult too, but.
Well, Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, my main concern would be sufficient time. Unfortunately that it's hard to estimate.
Is there something wrong with the 14th or the 15th? Or anything in the next week, 19th, 20th, 21st?
Once you break the magic plane,
yeah,
everything becomes possible.
Oh.
Well, even the week of the first, like 7th or 8th.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at, you know,
we've already got.
There's a whole lot of days in the month of.
We've already got December's.
You guys have way more free time than I do.
Well, I don't know. I was just asking,
just
making a, so, you know, not trying to box anybody into those particular dates that think a little bit larger.
What if, crazy man, what if we did the plan on Mondays, the December 8th, 9th, December 9th?
Oh, we're into December now?
Well, if we cancel the November one and we run into basically an all-day workshop on the 9th.
Well, remember that if
pizza or something.
Is the 9th the regular meeting day?
Yeah,
correct.
Well, that's the night meeting. We have the night meeting.
No, that's the workshop day.
Workshop.
The 9th is.
Oh, the workshop day. Oh, all right.
Yeah, I have council at 5 o'clock on that day.
We're gonna be long done before 5 o'clock.
Heard that before.
No.
Start at 9, done at 5.
Right.
What do you think?
What do you want to do?
Perfect. Oh.
Well, does that
That
kind of boxes you in, right?
Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, the only sooner would seem to be better to me. I appreciate the idea just because to get the materials aligned. So
Yeah,
I guess my ask would be
So
sometime
then the
in
other thing
November.
is, how about the 25th for a workshop? That's
the week of Thanksgiving.
That's Thanksgiving Monday, but Sorry.
Nick, what would you like?
The 18th was my
18th, I think that works for me.
And the 18th, you're looking for like a barn burner of a.
No, half and half. He's gonna take what we can't get done, and move it, but. So we're probably gonna have the presentations by the law firms on the December one. And I expect a barn burner, it's just gonna, won't be short.
Nick was saying that he wanted to do the presentations earlier so he could have the contracts in before the December, if I understood him correctly.
Okay, why don't we go back to the 12th, the afternoon of the 12th?
Let's let Nick tell us what he wants to do on the 18th.
Because I have conflicts on both of those days, and if I'm going to not do something, the 12th would be the one to cancel.
My belief is that based on the volume of information, it would be better to break it into two. You already have one on the 12th in the morning, which has problems with the Washington County. So I would suggest moving that to the afternoon, and I'll keep the agenda as light as possible and move these around. You could have your discussions with the legal firms on that day. And then other business, we could move to the 18th and have a half-day workshop there.
I'm with you, Jess. It messes up.
Yeah, just Mondays are like already the worst days ever. I mean, just put it out there. I mean, I may have on Monday, I'll have to hard stop at noon if it goes past that, because I have Metro City's commitment for the Met Council. So
yes,
and council.
Manager Bradley, and so Manager Robertson, that exactly why I think if we split it in two, if we could have, are we going to have two full 3-hour meetings? My hope would be no. If we could,
my hope too.
Yeah. So on the 18th,
we're pretty good at marathon meetings.
Well, we got a lot of discussion. Yeah. The board deliberates well.
Yeah, John, do you think there's any real risk that we would be needed at Washington County before 11 o'clock?
That would what?
Be needed in Washington County before 11 a.m.
Well, the meeting starts at 9 in the morning, and I would guess that somewhere between around 11 is when the workshop will start, and then generally it stops at about 1 o'clock or so.
So if we started,
but on the other,
if we started on Monday or Tuesday at 8 a.m. and ran until 10:30, stopped whatever we didn't get done, and roll over whatever we didn't get done until the following week. We do the things that you particularly wanted to make sure you covered before we went to our board meeting on Wednesday.
Yes.
Would that work?
Yes, staff could make that work.
Not an hour drive. Well, of course, I'm thinking about my house. I forgot I got to add 20 minutes from there. I'm just
Now that you mention it, that is a drive from where we'll be.
And it's it's a drive.
Let me ask this, how much is on the agenda for the 13th?
Manager Winan, I don't have that in front of me, but I'll just leave it at that.
So we start at 8 on the 13th in a workshop and then just plow through, because we've got.
Somewhere along the line, we also have the administrative salary we have to do.
Correct.
About that time, isn't it?
It's typically done in November or December.
So if we were to do,
I'm easy. If you guys
workshop after our meeting,
I know.
13th, the afternoon, to do salary.
That's the day of the city county partner.
Sorry. Now for the first week of November, what are you doing?
Can an email just go out?
I'm lost.
And let's just do a little doodle poll or whatever it is, because we're going to sit in here and compare calendars. We're going to be here till Christmas.
Manager Bradley, if I could, Board of Managers, if we could, yes, Manager Robinson, I think that's a great idea. And then everyone could answer and hopefully we'll have everyone at the same meeting. But what I would ask is let us definitively address the meeting that is already scheduled, which is your workshop on the 12th, which was pushed because of Veterans Day, and it collides with one of your managers' intent and maybe others to attend the Washington County meeting. The board, as you've experienced, deliberates and would like the full committee together for the deliberation. And so I think it's important that you have that opportunity.
So you're saying plan the afternoon. Let's get this.
Yeah.
Let's get it on the
Yes.
agenda for 1 to 4 on the afternoon of the 12th.
So, but I'm understanding that Manager Robertson may not make the
Send it
afternoon.
out, and if I can do it, I will obviously do it. Just, I don't have an exorbitant amount of free time. I don't have any, actually.
Yeah.
So.
So with that,
And
certainly
I would
the-
have to cancel something on that day.
I
to
know.
Make it. So that's what happens when you have holidays, I guess. And
Well,
work
that
would be
in
done.
addition to just a boatload of responsibilities.
Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, the other item I guess I would say is continue with your own meeting at its regular time and accept the deliberation of your colleagues, and I will put as best I can those things on the agenda that are so I have to amend the handbook and about signing time cards and that, if that, you know, I understand that the work of your professionals, you'd like to all be present. We could make sure to have that, you know, when you could all be present. But have some more informative matters at such a meeting.
Send out the notice,
Yeah.
email, and let people look over their schedules and reply. And
Manager Bradley?
yes,
Thank you. I believe that's probably the best. We've come to a little bit of a stalemate, if you will. Not having the materials in front of us to fully engage. So if it pleases the board, I'll work with Teresa. We'll send out a quote unquote doodle poll for folks to answer.
Is that what it's called, a doodle poll?
Yes.
Okay, I thought I was just saying that being
What is
like
it? Wait a
off the
minute.
cup. It is
Doodle.
literally called a doodle poll.
It's an app
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Doodle ball? Poll.
All right.
Oh.
Which of these days works for you? Boom, 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 boom.
you
Done.
know my schedule already.
I believe, then I believe we're done. Are we done? You got,
Manager Bradley.
Administrative
Updates.
Oh, how could I think?
I just thought we had that.
No, this was your calendar. Board of Managers met with the Washington County Commissioners Miron and Karwalski, along with Manager Waller. I felt we had a good discussion of Rice Creek activities. That is, again, an invitation to us, one that I feel it's important that we always take and discuss whatever is on those commissioners' mind. We shared work on the Preby Lake Outlet projects, which has been of interest to them. Advancements for the city of Birchwood regarding its Teague Schmitz Park, and it's currently for a watershed-based implementation funding, addressing water quality and flooding concerns. We discussed Lost Lake to some degree, and work plan for Matamita Park. I'll make note that Commissioner Miron made a note of our 0.7% levy increase. He seemed pleased with that amount being reasonable. Administrative costs were also noted at 6%, and then employee retention challenges and then the importance of retaining quality employees. Moving on from there, Anoka Ditch 5362. Stabilization efforts are done. We put some sheet pile in place on that ramp that we did in the Circle Pines area. We've been in communication with Circle Pines on the work. There's topsoil seeding. Hopefully we'll get some vegetation to take root. It's also been blanketed with erosion prevention netting. Bald Eagle Lake delisting celebration went well, good attendance. Matt and Kendra gave a good presentation of Rice Creek's delist, excuse me, the delisting meaning from the state and the progress through the years. Manager Bradley gave also a good review of the large number of projects that the district has undertaken, those costs, which are substantial, and about in and about the lake. That went well. It's that time of the year. The district's reviewing and investigating its insurance coverage. We reviewed the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, Rice Creek's coverage of its vehicles, of its employees, of its facilities, and make sure all those were on there. We're looking at our medical and dental options. Of course, I'm sure you're not surprised. You've seen your own materials. There are some increases in those costs, but they're within our budgeted estimates. We're feeling comfortable we'll land well there. Clear Lake, North and Forest Lake, has zebra mussels now. They were found in multiple locations. Yeah, and because they're in multiple locations, what DNR calls a rapid response chemical treatment is not possible. It won't be effective. As you may recall, Rice Creek plays a supporting role with this type of invasive species because we align with those that are affecting water quality, such as the carp and curly leaf pondweed. Beavers everywhere.
At least they're catching some.
Yeah, not a day goes by that Tom isn't communicating to me with additional needs for beavers to be trapped or dams to be removed and such. Clear Lake was found, water elevation is elevated. And of course, we had a lot of rain, and that was initially presumed to be the situation, but it never dropped. Sure enough, there was a beaver dam. District staff investigated, coordinated with DNR for the beaver dam removal. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's between Mud and Howard Lake, way out, and so they'll have to track in there and remove it. But DNR is going to undertake that, I'm happy to say. The boundary petition, last item, was received by Bowser. They're beginning their review. They're looking through all those materials we sent to make sure it's complete, and we go from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. So as the administrator said, we attended the Washington County meeting, and as he said, it went well. And the commissioners, Karwoski, of course, wants to see more money spent down the southern part of the district in those small towns. The Lost Lake, I'm gonna get my lakes all mixed up with the L's here, yeah. Was a discussion item, and I also attended the Forest Lake, Matamidi, and Hugo City Council meetings in the last couple of weeks. And at the very end of the meeting in Matamidi, their environmental commissioner, who's a member of their council, was talking about working with Met Council to do something to increase the water quality there for fishing. So maybe we have a possibility to work in there with them. We've worked with Met Council before. As you remember, we got a couple of $500,000 grants out of them when we were doing the Hugo and the White Bear Lake. And the Met Council person is also a member of the Clean Water Commission. And
Peter? Who is it over there? Peter? Is it Peter Lindstrom?
No, it's
a woman. Her name.
It's
Gail
Cedarburg. Yeah, there you go. And so is the mayor.
Yes.
And so a member of the Clean Water Commission. Yeah. So I talked to the administrator a little bit about if something can be worked out here again. Fishing was the concern of the water quality for that issue.
What lake? One more. I'm sorry.
Lost Lake, north and south there. And of course, there's Washington in there. There's really a three combination, and they all act as sediment traps for white bear, eventually. So, and they're lowering the culvert out of Lost Lake, the north side, to go to White Bear Lake. So anyways, I did attend the Bald Eagle meeting. We had 40 people there that were not staff. That's marvelous. Beaver controls, yes, is a big problem. I took a journey out in the former ditch 47 with manager Wagman. We started on the
Quite a journey.
We
It
started on
was.
the wrong side of the ditch, the upside, and walked all the way down to find this beaver dam, which is near 20th Avenue, the end of it. And it's located on, I think, on an old Rabine property. And so, but I've stopped in to talk to the administrator at Centerville about it. And, we've had so much beaver trouble, Hugo this year, Forest Lake. I was driving by JD2 the other day, and I called Tom. It looks like there's a new dam there by the Nimcheks. We had him in Blaine. We've had him in Columbus. We have in Lino Lakes. So I asked we have a pretty good relationship with that administrator, and asked him to think about how we could use the city's powers, and the district to work together, because the city has a lot more authority to go into places than we do. But we're kind of limited, and in particular in Old 47, we can't get in there at all. So I mean, on work on that. So anyways, there's that issue. I don't think there's anything else. I went to the meeting last night with all of you and listened. So, and that's all I have to say, Mr. President. Goodbye.
Marcy?
No updates?
Steve?
I can keep her short. I have nothing.
Hey, I'm happy to make a motion to adjourn if that's what we're all.
Let's just briefly.
We got ya.
So
We tried.
I did go to the Bald Eagle thing. They love us. They love Matt. Oh, they love Matt. So at any rate, it was a good public relations effort. We talked about future opportunities at that lake, and goodness gracious, let's adjourn.
Wonderful. I'm glad it went.
Yeah, I did.
Did we have a vote?
Yeah.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.